having that lifestyle change that running provided me and like being able to, feel those natural endorphins, it's just something you want to do more and more and more and get better and better and better. And finding something so late in life, I started running when I was 27, and just like to see the progression so sharply, it's just something I want to keep exploring. I feel like my legs are very young, in running years. But I feel like, it's just kind of like a second chance at a new sport.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspects of running and what helps people to achieve success, however they define it, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. We are proud to share that this episode is sponsored by our friends over at Puma. Here at For the Long Run podcast, we're fans of Puma and have been really impressed with their efforts to support and foster the running community. We're excited to partner with a brand that has such a rich history in sports and that cares deeply about the running community. Puma believes that sometimes all it takes is a spark to make a change, to get motivated, or to try something new or hard. And we couldn't agree more. All we need is that small spark, and the actions will follow to get us there. With that small flicker, anything is possible. Puma running shoes offers supreme cushioning, superior propulsion, comfort, and lightweight technology. I've been running in the DV8 Nitro First Mile, and I love how it has a focus on sustainability. The shoe feels amazing, and even better, it's in collaboration with First Mile. It's made from at least 20% recycled material, as First Mile's focus is on cutting down plastic waste in production and in the supply chain by finding innovative ways to get recycled plastic into products like Puma running shoes. Check out a pair for yourself at puma.com and use the code FORTHELONGRUN for 20% off any Puma Run or Train products. When you support Puma, you support me and the rest of the For the Long Run podcast team. Thanks again to Puma for sponsoring us. For most of us runners, we are constantly fitting our training into a very busy schedule. Between work, families, and other responsibilities, this means a lot of running happens in the dark. And that's the one thing I love about runners, that this doesn't dissuade them, it motivates them. They see darkness as an opportunity for growth rather than an obstacle. That's why we're excited that this episode is sponsored by Petzl. Whether you're a get up before the kids and get your run in, or a trail runner with big mountain goals, you need a headlamp that keeps your path light and bright. We all know that tripping over stuff sucks, and we should do everything we can to avoid that. I've been using Petzl headlamps for years, and they've kept my trail lit up for long days out there, and nights. And just like how we feel about the sign of a good running shoe, a great headlamp is one that you completely forget that you're wearing. If you're in the market for a new headlamp, we highly recommend Petzl. I personally use the Now RL, and it's so bright for every occasion. Pick yours up at the local gear shop or over at petzl.com. And remember, when you support our brand partners, you support the For the Long Run podcast and team. Thank you to Microcosm Coaching for supporting the podcast this month. We're excited to be working with the team at Microcosm Coaching, who are disrupting the never enough culture in running by guiding athletes towards mastery, joy, and independence in the training process. Microcosm Coaching is a human-first coaching organization that knows the best athletes don't go at it alone. That's why Microcosm offers a diverse team of coaches with an expertise in nutrition, mental health, and performance that will help sustain your love for running long-term. Find your community at microcosm-coaching.com and tell them that the team at FTLR sent you. Thank you to the team at Microcosm for their continued support of our show and the greater community. Okay.
All right.
We're live with Brian Schroy.
How's it going?
How are we doing?
Living the dream. We were just talking about the fact that it was raining for 5 days and now finally seeing the sun. Everyone's on a vitamin D high.
I know. It's like everyone I saw out running today and there were a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
They were just like, it was just smiles.
Smiles, shirtless. Everyone's having a good time.
It was good. So before we dive into waxing poetic over how amazing Boulder is, which I'm sure we will get to.
Absolutely.
The first question is always a hard one, but who is Brian?
Who is Brian?
And I've been wanting to ask you this one for a while, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I grew up snowboarding in the East Coast of Maine and went to a boarding school out there. And that's how I originally found Colorado, was looking for bigger and badder mountains. Then Then I went to CU and really went all into the party scene of it and not so much into the exercise scene. So kind of after college, I wanted to get into shape again and met a partner who was really into running and found running pretty late in life. But it was just fixated by the community aspect. And ever since, dived kind of headfirst into running and have been running consistently since 2015 now.
That's the Brian Schroy story in 2 minutes. I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah, easy enough.
So one thing that I've really respected about you is your intense focus on community while paired with chasing big goals of your own.
Absolutely.
Let's dive into the first bit of it. You're often known for being the guy that's related to Soft Hour, that started Soft Hour. So I heard you on another podcast talking a little bit about it. But for those who don't know, first, what is Soft Hour?
So Soft Hour is a community run that we host every Wednesday here in Boulder. Anyone's welcome. But yeah, we created it because, outside of running, we had all these friends that were seeing us disappear every morning and kind of saying, I would love to be a part of that, but I don't feel fast enough. And we were kind of like, this is something that anyone can participate in. We want to get all of our friends involved. So the concept was to run soft at a conversational pace for an hour and usually on a soft surface. So everyone's bodies feel all right the next day.
Plenty of soft surfaces out here in Boulder.
Yeah.
And plenty of people who need to run easy more.
Absolutely. And I think the nice thing is, we live in this town that has so many people enjoying this recreationally, but you also have the top end competitors as well. And I think that everyone realizes that they could really use these recovery days. And before, there wasn't necessarily like a group run for everyone. So this invites people at that top professional level, as well as those people just getting into running to come together and join forces and be at the same place doing the same run. It's kind of like the special thing about a marathon was something we were trying to do with Soft Hour, where like everyone's running the same course and you could be the top pro runner in the world and you're still running the same course as the 6-hour marathoner. So this is kind of the same concept. We create a route. People can run their conversational pace, but we can all do it together.
Yeah, it's fun. You can be running Emma Bates's conversational pace, or you could be doing a workout.
Absolutely. It's some people who have decided to dive into the faster end of Soft Hour will just come for their like tempo runs every week. But yeah, we definitely like it when people kind of form their own groups and are able to run the pace that they want to run.
As someone who's coached by David Roche, my workouts are usually on Wednesdays. So I'm a repeat offender of the 3-mile warm-up soft and then a scoop of hard serve.
Absolutely. You just got to make it, what you want to make it. So that's what it's there. It's there for some motivation in the morning. And if you want to join us for your first 20 minutes before you dive into your workout, by all means.
And we've got a little collab coming up in a couple of weeks with the Scratch Cafe and
right.
For the long run. If you're in the Boulder area, come join us at 7 a.m. on Global Running Day.
That's right.
June Scratch 7th. Cafe.
Yeah.
So I want to push a little more on the community aspect, right? So it's like one thing to have a day a week where the focus is community. But when I think of Brian Schroy, I think of like community to the core. And like that's how I like you're a leader, you're someone who people seem to gravitate to, everyone. And I'm curious, like, where has it always been like that for you? Where is it an intentional effort?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it actually comes back to snowboarding. While they seem like totally different sports, I see a lot of parallels between action sports, winter sports, and running, where at a certain point, everyone kind of knows each other. It's a small enough industry where you realize that the same people are out there. You're seeing the same people on the creek path. You're seeing the same people at races. And that's kind of what I loved about snowboarding is I felt like even though I didn't make it in like a professional sense, I got to an ability level where I could ride down the mountain with anyone from beginner to expert. And when I got into running, that was something I really wanted to bring to this sport where like, just because, you're a 3:59 miler doesn't mean we can't find a common ground and find a place to run. So, I'd say that it was really just like looking at the two industries and being like, these are similar it worked in snowboarding. Why can't we also bring it to running where we all know each other? We can all show up to the same places and, come together for an hour of our day.
Yeah, it's super cool. My start in running was with November Project in Boston. Yeah. And I mean, like the guy who got me to go is a professional hockey player.
Yeah.
I saw Andrew Ferentz tweeting about November Project and then like drunk at a bar one night, we were like, okay, we should probably check this out. And we had all heard about it from him and from a couple other people who were posting about it. And so it was this same thing where like you're training alongside people who are being paid to compete. Mm-hmm. And then you have someone who's never exercised in their life, all training in the same arena. Yeah. I think there's something super cool about that.
Yeah. And I also think that like, being an all-comers event, you get so many different stories and relationships where like, I felt like so many long runs I would go to with other teams. It was just kind of the same conversation every week of like, what are you training for? Yeah. Like, what's your goal time? And it's like, I want to know what you're doing outside of the sport. Yeah. And that's one of the big things. We just kind of talk about whatever we want. Like it's never really about the running when we come to soft hour. It's just about friendship and coming together and having good conversations.
So for someone who's hearing this and they're like, wow, that sounds awesome. Just another reason I wish I lived in Boulder. First, you should talk to Lauren Daniels about buying a house in Boulder. But jokes aside, what would the takeaway be for creating this community in maybe their own hometown?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that we do not find very revolutionary. I think.
Damn, I'm showing up for group run once a week.
Exactly.
Consistency.
Yeah, I think it's really something that we want to see replicated and copied in any community. And it's really like we started just a few friends just making the pack that every Wednesday when we knew we had an easy day to just show up. And then we started inviting other people. And whether you're like making it into a Facebook group or we just literally post on our Instagram story once a week where we're going to be. And it's that simple really. And it will build because people want that community and that people are looking for other people to run with, especially people, gravitating towards Boulder, want to meet new people. And this is a great way to meet people from multiple teams, multiple backgrounds. So yeah, I just say, if you build it, they will come.
That's a great phrase. I've never heard it before. Okay. So the word community gets thrown around quite a lot, but what does it actually mean to you?
I think community is really, something that you can share with other people, and it can be people from all walks of life. I think when I first moved to Boulder, and one of the reasons, soft hour became such a thing to me was because I felt like people were very divided and a lot of it was private. Like if you didn't train with this group, then you couldn't be let in on that group's events and their training programs and stuff. So for me, it was a way for any runner in this beautiful town that we live in to come together and just be able to share something so special, so sacred to us. So yeah, community really, to me, is just bringing people from all walks of life together to share their own stories and, not feel like they have to hide something when it comes to their running or just their passions or anything. It's kind of an open door, open book policy.
Cool. Switching gears, the last person that sat in that seat was TJ David, also the path from mountain sports of the snow variety to in his case trail running. And he talked a lot about the change in perspective and the change in focus from being a professional skier to being a professional runner or high-end runner.
Yeah.
I'm curious your relationship with pursuing such great things in one sport and then changing sports.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I took snowboarding very seriously from probably the age of like 7. And then I went to competitive mountain boarding school in Maine. And then, thought I was going to kind of pursue snowboarding when I came out to Colorado. I was a little burned out when I showed up here, but it was still like, again, the community. All my friends were snowboarders or skiers and we all know each other. And it was like, even if I don't pursue snowboarding at a professional level, maybe I can, work in a profession in that industry. And I did that for a while. But then, I think with my passion shifting more to running, I started pursuing more stuff in running. But snowboarding and action sports at the time, I think it's changed a lot, were a lot less regimented. I think there was like a lot more of a party culture. I think there was less going to the gym. So I think it was, again, more just like being with my friends on the mountain that drove me to snowboarding. So the bigger shift was like running. You have to like wake up early and like, work out sometimes twice a day and like have a strength training routine. So like I became a much more regimented human, and like going to bed early and prioritizing sleep. All these things were new to me. So I think beforehand I was, enjoying the sport of snowboarding, but wasn't necessarily going all into snowboarding. Where with running, it was kind of the opposite, where like I made changes to my lifestyle to complement running. I don't think I ever did that with snowboarding.
You've talked about making some pretty big changes in your lifestyle, moving away from snowboarding. What was that journey and evolution like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know that like skiing and snowboarding, like I said, may have changed a lot since then, since I was kind of working in that industry, but it was very much based around partying. And there's like an unspoken rule in action sports where if you win a contest, your friend has to spend 10% of his winnings at the bar. 10% rule. And when everyone in that industry, your friend's always going to win and you're always going to spend 10% of the bar. So that was like the first thing that got thrown out when I switched to running. And like, okay, there's no more 10% rule. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like what you surround yourself with. And the nice thing is like most of my friends that are also taking running very seriously kind of have that same lifestyle where we can go out and, know that even if we are going to like go to a bar, we're still going to wake up earlier and get our long run in or our workout in the next day. So it's kind of just surrounding yourself with people with similar goals. And that makes the shift in lifestyle very easy.
And you've run some fast times having made that shift. I've seen you at a couple of races this year and cruising along. I'm always fascinated by the people who are not being paid to compete, who choose to put so much mental energy into the process, right? Like for you, you're not going to win the Boston Marathon, but you spend a ton of time prepping for it, or Chicago or Berlin or whatever the race is.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about why do you train so hard and what is it about? Because it seems like you love the process.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of it is like, whether I like to admit it or not, that old lifestyle was, not sustainable. I was going out too often. I was ending up in sticky situations that I wouldn't have if it wasn't 4 a.m. and I wasn't stumbling around New York City. Like I think that having that lifestyle change that running provided me and like being able to, feel those natural endorphins, it's just something you want to do more and more and more and get better and better and better. And finding something so late in life, I started running when I was 27, and just like to see the progression so sharply, it's just something I want to keep exploring. I feel like my legs are very young.
Fresh.
Yeah. In running years. But I feel like, it's just kind of like a second chance at a new sport.
So I'm assuming you ran today.
I ran today, yeah.
Why did you go for a run today?
I went for a run
Same
today.
reason we go every day,
Yeah,
Pinky.
exactly. I'm training for the New York City. Well, I have the New York City half this weekend. So just getting that last bit of mileage in before the race. But I am on a taper. So I'm trying to run a little less.
Nice. So you're tapering for the half?
Yeah.
What's the goal for the half?
I don't know. I just had double hernia surgery about 6 weeks ago. So that was not in the original plan when I signed up for the half. But I'd still love to run somewhere, between 110 and 112. Yeah, we'll see.
Quick. And then you're doing New York City in the fall, is that?
Berlin.
Berlin.
Yeah,
Berlin.
I'm going back.
Very cool. So you did Berlin last year, right?
I did Berlin. I snuck in a 4-second PR, but I found out the next day I had COVID.
Right.
This is the redemption tour. This is the healthy Berlin.
The healthy Berlin.
Yeah.
Okay, so What is it like to travel to Europe for a race? Like, how do you mentally prep for changing time zones, all of this stuff?
I mean, for me, that's what brings me joy is like being able to travel and race at the same time. Like I signed up for the Brooklyn half this weekend because my brother just welcomed twins to the world. So I knew like this would be a great time to come out, meet the new nephews. So yeah, I think that Berlin, like I definitely, kind of coming back to community, I really run better when there's like, that crowd support. And that's why like Berlin's so appealing to me is I get to see an amazing new place. I get to be surrounded by, hundreds of thousands of people, and I get to run next to 40,000, people chasing their dreams. So I'm all about that. I know some people are not, but I'm all about the destination marathon, even if it's just like flying over to Chicago. Chicago is usually my birthday weekend, so I get to like double celebrate. But I got some weddings going on this year, so I'm sticking to Berlin.
Nice. I find that there are two ways that people handle the travel. It's like either like everything is a stressor or nothing is a stressor.
Yeah, totally. I'm usually like I don't sleep well before I race. I just have never slept well. So I know that like whether I'm flying to Germany or whether I'm flying to Boston, like the sleep's going to be the same. So I just try to get there usually like Wednesday or Thursday if I'm going to race on Sunday and just get like 2 good nights of sleep. I think I've kind of handled the overnight flights pretty well where I like, try to stay up as long as possible day one. So I like, no matter what, get 8 quality hours of sleep day 2. And then day 3, it's like sleep doesn't matter because I'm running a marathon.
Exactly. It's funny, these like mind games we play with ourselves to just make it possible. Okay, so a lot of the conversations I've had on the podcast lately have been around not like the act of running, but like how running supports other aspects of your life and how running makes you a better person outside of like the 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 miles that somebody might run in a week. And to me, that's like, people are like, oh, running is selfish. I'm like, no, it's not. It's like the way to make yourself the best version of yourself. So I'm curious for you as someone who's in the running space, in the fitness space, a lot of your friends are, similar in that regard. Talking about the relationship that you have with running relative to everything but the actual act of running.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we've kind of touched on earlier, I've definitely always followed and pursued my passions and kind of made that like my whole life. So when I was really into action sports, I worked in the action sports industry. I got really into boxing when I was living in New York City, started working for a boxing nonprofit. And now I still work for that boxing nonprofit, Haymakers for Hope, but I actually started their running division where we, have charity bibs for major marathons across the country and world, I guess, Berlin, New York, Boston, Chicago. So now through my own work, I'm able to share those experiences with other people, a new cycle of people each marathon. And I know that that's also going back to our cause of trying to literally knock out cancer. So I think for me, like being able to not only pursue it on my own level, but being able to introduce new people to it and get them towards their goals and work through, like I kind of am hands-on as their coach through their own training and helping them with the fundraising process. So being able to take my passion every day and turn it into something good and spread that to new people every year is super fulfilling for me.
Shout out to Ben and McKenna who are
absolutely.
Some of my friends running New York. So you're getting to coach people who are potentially running their first marathon. Is that true? What's that journey like? I
mean, it's fun. You get a mix of emotion. Beforehand, when I was working on the boxing side, I was kind of the middleman. Like we would assign...
Both sides would punch you?
Yeah. So the way the boxing works is we take people with no real boxing experience. We assign them to a gym and then they have 4 months of training. And then they have their first amateur fight in front of like 2,000 people 4 months later. So the whole concept with running, it's very similar. You have a fundraising goal, you have 4 months of training, But we kind of take out the middleman, and like, instead of dealing with like very old school boxing trainers who can have their own, set of rules and ways, like I get to be the direct contact. So I think that takes a lot of the stress off me, where I'm like, oh, I can't believe you just put this person in the ring their first day holding gloves. Like I wouldn't have done that. So I think like being able to, train people in a way that I feel is going to get them to the start line healthy. And having those phone calls where like people have called me like, I don't know if I'll make it. And it's just, trust me, like we're fine. And then seeing those people cross the finish line a month later is just hugely rewarding. Like I think that, knock on wood, but we still are 100% success rate with our marathoners, even in this past super hot New York City race. So yeah, I feel like, if you do the training, that really anyone can run a marathon, and being able to watch people on these journeys that did not think they were capable of running that distance 4 months prior is very fulfilling at the end of the day.
That's super cool. And that's like the epitome of what we can learn from running, right? Like when you sign up for a marathon the first time, it's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
It should be incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And you just do it, right?
Yeah. And just watching people's journeys, like outside of the fundraising, just, we've seen people both on the boxing and running side, like lose 30 pounds in that 4 month period, or like totally pick up the sport afterwards and pursue running and sign up for our next races. We've had, I'd say, 3 people come back and do 3 more races with us. And we've only been, a running organization for the last 3 years. So to have someone come back year after year after year already is awesome.
If you've been enjoying this podcast and can spare 90 seconds of your time today, can you do me a favor? Can you pop over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review? It helps other people find and enjoy the podcast too. Thanks so much. This episode of For the Long Run podcast is sponsored by Puma. For 75 years, Puma has been pushing sports and culture forward with innovative design and development. We are honored to have Puma supporting this show and supporting the running community at large. My greatest compliment for running shoe is, I didn't think about it once. The purpose of having the right gear is to enable you to do anything you want out there. When I'm running in Puma's Deviate Nitro First Mile, all I'm thinking about is literally anything else. I think about the community. I think about why trying hard things is so rewarding. I think about how cute Alfie is. And I think about how much I love tacos. And I think about the big things like how I want to leave each place I inhabit better than I found it. You know what I'm not thinking about? What's on my feet. And that's the best thing about Puma running shoes. They're designed to help you get out there effortlessly, so you don't have to worry about what's on your feet. Just need to worry about putting one foot in front of the other. Check out a pair for yourself at puma.com and use the code FORTHELONGRUN, all one word, for 20% off. Again, when you support Puma, you're supporting me and the rest of the podcast team. Thanks again to Puma for supporting us. Here at the For the Long Run podcast, we believe that inspired athletes are unstoppable. That's why we're excited to be working with the team at Microcosm Coaching. We're disrupting the never enough culture in running by guiding athletes towards mastery, joy, and independence in the training process. Microcosm Coaching is a human-first coaching organization that knows that the best athletes don't go at it alone. That's why Microcosm offers a diverse team of coaches with an expertise in nutrition, mental health, and performance that will help you sustain your love for running long-term. The Microcosm coaches and community of like-minded athletes will encourage you, strengthen your commitment, and support accountability towards your highest goals. Through breakthroughs, setbacks, and plateaus, your coach and community will guide you through the ups and downs inherent in an athletic life. Find your community at microcosm-coaching.com and tell them that the team at FTLR sent you. Thank you to the team at Microcosm for their continued support of our show and our greater running community. As a New Englander, I'm always excited to see brands from the area who are doing good in the world and doing good for our running community. That's why we're thrilled to say that this episode is sponsored by Darn Tough, started and headquartered in Vermont. You may know of Darn Tough for their durability and warmth, but did you know that they have a whole line of running socks to keep you staying dry and comfortable for the long run? Darn Tough's running socks are incredibly durable, especially in high wear areas. They're made with breathable mesh, are ultra lightweight, and are incredibly comfortable. You might be thinking, well, aren't their socks made of wool? Won't that be too hot on my feet? Well, it turns out the merino wool socks are perfect for keeping your feet at the ideal temperature and dry, regardless if you're running in cold or hot weather. In fancy words, wool helps with thermoregulation. I've been a fan of and running in Darn Tough socks for years now, so we're excited to welcome them to For the Long Run family. Get a pair of your own at the link in the show notes and be sure to use the code FTLR-BESTSOCK10 for 10% off. So you created the running division within Haymakers for Hope. What was that like?
It was interesting because we kind of started it during 2020. So we finally got some bibs for Boston and we got bibs for New York City. And then both races were canceled. So I didn't think it was great to start. But the nice thing is it's one of those things where I feel like once you get one marathon, it's kind of easier to get the next. So like you have collateral with Chicago once you get into New York, and you have collateral with Boston once you get into Chicago. So now that we're like actually able to get these marquee races, and interesting thing about, back to the boxing side is we only let our boxers do our event once to keep it fair for everyone. You're too experienced if you've done it.
To be fighting an amateur.
Exactly. So there's always people who have done our boxing program that want to continue on this like health and wellness journey, but don't have the avenue to like stay with our organization. And this we originally created so our alumni would have more to do. So if they wanted to challenge themselves again physically, sign up for a marathon. But now people are knowing us outside of our alumni, and we're just getting signups, and people are reaching out for bibs on their own. So it is growing organically. And I think that, it will continue to have more and more bibs throughout the years. And hopefully like that can be a good portion of our fundraising is going to be due to the marathons.
Cool. And so what was the process like of like actually creating that?
I mean, it took some rejection. Like I think we got rejected from New York for the first 3 years we applied, and definitely got rejected from Boston for a few years. So yeah, it's kind of, still at the disposal of the nonprofit or the race organizations, because they can some years be like, we're only going to give you 15 bibs, though you apply for 25. So we still have like the headaches, and like it can be hard to like for new races to get people to say, oh yeah, I'll fly to Berlin and fundraise for you. So there's still definitely like the growing pains of being, a new network of race providing. But yeah, I think for the most part, like people want to race and people want to race for a good cause. And I think that when you're looking for an organization to fundraise with, you want to be going for something that you're actually passionate about.
Cool. Switching back to your own running, you're part of a team, the track club, and you've been there for a while.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Talking about talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun journey, but I think what it really is just a bunch of friends who really care for each other that like to train hard together 3 days a week. So it kind of has like formed on its own. And yeah, it's just friends from, I think that it was really kind of pandemic based, where all these people from different walks of life ended up in Boulder at the same time. And all were looking for a place to run. And we all kind of found the track club.
The thing that keeps coming up with the track club or soft hour or really any group that has grown or sustained anything interesting is the consistency aspect. And so like that's how you get better at running. It's you must be consistent. And so I think that this like reinforces what I heard about the first time or second time I went to November Project, which was if you go once, great. If you go twice, great. If you go 3 times, like people will start to remember you. And if you go 3 times in a row and you don't show up the 4th, somebody might be like, hey, where was Brian today? Yeah. And to me, it's like that consistency and the accountability and that we're doing this together that I think makes a huge difference. And then when I came to Boulder, I started running with you guys. Yeah. And when I said I was running with a lot of the women in the group. And when I said to my coach, I was like, I didn't think I could run this fast.
Yeah.
And it's just like really cool what you can do in a group.
Absolutely.
Particularly in a group that like trains intelligently and doesn't like, I was racing long runs and I would just go out really fast. And is when we're not doing that. Yeah. And it was like 8:30 pace for the first, 6 miles. And then we're finishing at 6:30 pace. Yeah. And it's just like such a good feeling to feel good on those long runs.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are times and places where running by yourself is great, but I think it's always going to be just a little better with a group and make the burn a little less.
Would you run every mile with someone if you could? Every mile of the week?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think I would. I there are days where I don't, just like because of schedules, it's just easier to get out the door. But I would say that 95% of my runs are with other people.
I came to Boulder in 2019 for it was like an 8-day trip or 7-day trip. I ran something like 72 miles over the 8-day period, and I ran 4 miles by myself.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I went home. I was pretty injured.
Yeah.
This must have been 2018, actually. Anyway, and it's just like so fun. It's such a fun way to experience. I think there are just like barriers that can be broken down. I like to call it like the dashboard effect. Like if you're not looking at someone, you can. I mean, we're looking at each other right now. And by the way, if you're not looking at us, you're listening on out of your ear pods or whatever. We're now on YouTube, and you can go onto YouTube and enter to win a pair of Puma shoes by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Well, I love how I just weaved that in. I wasn't even planning that.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. I wasn't even planning that. Anyway, and I think there's so much value in like a conversation like this, but I have a buddy who I used to drive to Tahoe from San Francisco, and we did adventures in the Grand Canyon. Shout out to Tony with the Sony. And we would just like talk and talk, and we'd be in the car for 5 hours and never actually look at each other. Yeah. And it's the same thing with running.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, that's the funny thing about running, and like why I felt so strongly about community. I had people at my wedding that I had known for like 2 months, and it was just like, oh, well, we went on 3 long runs together. I know everything about their life, of course. So I think when you remove like technology and cell phones and distractions, and you just have, 2 hours to spend with someone or a group of people, you get to really know each other.
Yeah. What you just said there is like one of the reasons that I love this medium and loved it like right from the start. Like, outside of running, when was the last time you spent an hour talking to someone with no distractions? I mean, my phone is here because it's recording us for like backup reasons.
It's not often.
It's not often. And it's just like such a refreshing take.
Absolutely.
Okay. So switching gears again, we're switching gears so many times. This might have to be a cycling podcast. One topic that I like to talk about on this podcast is defining success and like how somebody define success. So I'm curious how you define success.
I think I'm still figuring that out. But yeah, I mean, I think I've exceeded my expectations year after year. I think I've said this before, but I remember when I first started running. Well, really, the reason I kind of got into running is I hurt my shoulder when I was boxing, and the first thing I could do for rehab was run. And my partner at the time, wife now, was training for the Boston Marathon, and I just like decided to do her training cycle. So I was like, I should probably sign up for a race. I convinced my buddy Jake, who's over at Darn Tough. He's now in the running industry.
Oh, no way. He is. We have a partnership with Darn Tough, and he gave me these socks.
That's right. I know you've been dealing with Jake. But yeah, I convinced Jake to do the New York Marathon with me, and I trained, and he did not. And we realized that at the Queensboro Bridge when he turned pale, and I was like, I gotta leave you. So my first marathon was New York with a friend kind of holding me back a little bit. And I ran 3:18. And then I was kind of like, I wonder what I could do if I didn't have him there. So I signed up for the Vancouver Marathon, which I know nothing about. I just knew I liked Vancouver. City. Yeah, it's quite a hilly course. It's a beautiful course. But I was like, that's where I'm going to go. And I'm going to qualify for Boston. And then I showed up and qualified for Boston at my next race. And I was still like back to boxing and only running like 3 days a week. And then it was like, what could I do if I trained 5 days a week and boxed less and got a coach? So like, I just remember someone showing me some guy's tattoo of his like PRs. And it was like, started at 3:30. And then I forget where it goes down to, but I was like, I could never do that. I could never hit those times. And I revisited the tattoo not too long ago, and I've exceeded all the times on it. So it's really just like I said earlier, I feel like my legs are young and I found this sport late. So just seeing what I can do in the sport. is what motivates me every morning, you know?
Isn't that wild that like
Wild.
your first marathon was a 3:18 and you were just like, yeah, I could never go faster, but I wonder if I could do a sub 3.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I could do a sub 2:30. And what is it like having that curiosity matched with like continuing to see the results? Maybe not every race, but over a 5-year period, like you've seen those results. What's that like? What's the takeaway there?
Well, I think my problem is I've seen them every race. With the exception of Chicago, when it was brutally hot, I have somehow PR'd, whether that's by 1 second or 1 minute, every race I've done. So I'm a bad example, but yeah.
You're gonna get slapped around in your next race.
I know it's coming. It's going to be so bad. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I have this conversation a lot when I'm running with my friends, that before it was really just a matter of like seeing how far I could get in this sport. You know, bigger goal would be Olympic trials. And I think the Olympic trials standard is still, you know, something that piques my curiosity and it's not necessarily out of the table or off the table. And I think that I keep pushing so hard so that goal is not so out of reach. But I also think that I'm in a place in my running where I'm so happy like with my times and with what we've built with Soft Hour. And, you know, I have a partnership with Tracksmith that like is something I never thought as a 34-year-old that I would have, you know. So I think that I'm at a place in my running where I'm like, all my dreams have kind of come true. And the next thing is just like seeing where else we can go. But like if I had running taken away tomorrow, I would feel like I really checked off every box in the sport.
It's such a cool place to be. I feel similar. For 4 years, I chased breaking 3. I broke 3, and I still can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, that was like the goal. And there's nothing else out there that's like, that drives me that strongly. I want to run 100 miles one day. I've done the Grand Canyon. That was super cool. But there's no like I don't feel the same way about the 100-mile distance as I did about breaking 3 and qualifying for Boston. And so I'm curious, like, how do you reconcile that with like, you would be happy if running was taken away from you tomorrow with everything you've achieved, but you can go for a run tomorrow. Granted, you're tapering, so it might not be as long as you want. But like, talk to me about that place you're in and continuing to find the drive and the motivation to like explore that curiosity of truly how far can you go or how fast can you go?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just hopefully just, you know, tapping the surface of this. But I feel like having a group and these dependability partners that I meet every morning is kind of like keeps me going, and working hard with them and seeing us get fit together is such a driving force. And then you get fit and then your goals shift and then you're like, maybe I can do this. And I mean, I think we all had a very tough winter in Boulder. It was very snowy, very cold.
Isn't that funny? Because like that would have been like a decent New England winter.
Totally. But then New England had a beautiful winter.
Right. Yeah. It was 70 all week last week.
So I think you get in these like modes where you're like, oh, you know, there's no fitness. I just ran terribly all winter and had no consistency. And then like the sun starts shining and it starts becoming beautiful out. And you're like, I could give this another go. I mean, I think nothing's better than like getting up a little early and running hard at like, you know, when it's 55 degrees in the summer and just being with all your friends on like a perfect groomed dirt road. And we get spoiled with that. So it's hard to not chase dreams when you're like surrounded by professional athletes with like perfect trails and beautiful weather. So I think that's kind of what keeps motivating me is like, you're in it. When you're here, you're in it.
So what's the takeaway again from someone who isn't necessarily here, but they want to be in it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just finding a group of people that get you really excited to run and making it a habit, making it, you know, a weekly goal to meet up and do this thing together, whether that's a long run or a run once a week. Otherwise, just listen to this podcast.
Yeah, if you listen to this podcast, you'll chip off a bunch of runs.
Yeah, it's like you're here with us.
It has become a dream come true to like have this set up here in Boulder with all the people that are like so interesting. The first 50 episodes of this podcast were recorded in person, mostly in Boulder or Tahoe or San Francisco. And it's just like, it's been so fascinating to get to know people a little bit more. We've known each other for 2 years now. And I don't know, this is the most we've spoken like one-on-one.
Totally.
And there's so much to be gained from all of these stories. And whether you're chasing a 2:18 marathon or a sub-7 marathon, like there's an interesting story in there. We are at an interesting place in running media and running. Everyone has a podcast these days, it seems. Talking about the media that you're a part of, that you consume, that keeps you interested in the sport.
Totally. I mean, I definitely have like an auto shuffle going on YouTube that knows me a little too well. But I am just a huge fan of the sport. I love watching track and fields when it's on the weekend. I consume pretty much all the running podcasts if I am running by myself or just driving in my car. And yeah, I love when people are like, I can't believe you're going to sit down and watch a marathon. It's like, oh yeah, how long was that last Celtics game with all those commercial breaks? Like way longer than a marathon. So yeah, I mean, I definitely like.
I've had that conversation many times.
Oh yeah, totally. So I kind of consume it all, from YouTube to just watching it on TV to listening to the podcast.
And a couple of your friends have podcasts these days, it seems, right?
That's how it seems. Yeah, the track club has kind of launched a little bit of a media arm. So running the show, check it out.
So what's the idea there?
It's really kind of just looking at the business behind the running scene. Talking to different, running groups about how they started, or brands or people within the sport, and how they, look at it from a business standpoint.
Very cool. Yeah, it's been fascinating to tune into that. And particularly in this town, there are a lot of people that like experience it on both sides, either from brand and athlete, or athlete and podcast or creator or whatever. Mm. And so to have the perspective of like 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4 or whatever, it's like a really, like Drew, for example, has a really interesting perspective around the business of running.
Yeah.
And Emma, and like there's just such unique personalities.
Totally. Just all coming from different sides of the industry, from someone who ran professionally to someone who worked at multiple jobs within the industry to someone who's, leading marketing at Tracksmith right now.
Okay. So fast forward 20 years.
All right.
It's 54-year-old Brian. What are you really proud of?
The fact that I'm still doing the same thing. I mean, honestly, like we talk about it, my wife and I talk about it all the time, of like, that would be the dream if we're still able to like get up and go for a run. And maybe like my dream in running is to just start doing Boston and New York every year at some point, when it's like times are not relevant. Like I would love to just race the 2 greatest marathons in the world every year and just be able to like train at some level, but just be healthy and be able to still get outdoors and be outside every day and hitting the trails. Like, but I think that we've talked about most of the things I'm proud of. I'm super proud of the success I've had in the sport already. I'm really proud of the community we've built, and I'm super proud of the, partnerships we've developed in such a short time. Very
cool. Yeah. The running, I don't want to say forever, but for a long time, for the long run, is super pronounced in this town, right?
Yeah.
Like we parked at Left Hand on Saturday, and I met Rich Castro. I've seen him running a million times.
Yeah.
Father of Greg Castro, who leads Puma North America. And I sent Greg a picture. I was like, I just met your dad. And he's like, everyone's like, you better know that guy. And just like a Boulder legend. But he's 70 something years old. And he was out there running with 2 of his buddies who are also 70 years old. And we passed them. And he was like, make sure you enjoy passing a bunch of 70-year-olds. And I was like, dude, you're living the dream. Like This is the dream.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many times where like I'll talk to some guy who's just like, what team are you on? What are you training for? And then someone will be like, oh yeah, he, ran the
Olympics in the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. It's a funny place we live for sure.
It's definitely a funny place. So you got into running at 27.
Uh-huh.
We've asked a question to the 54-year-old Brian Schroy. That is the sound of the GoPro saying, I've had enough.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm so tired.
The GoPro needs a little more heat training.
Yeah.
We've asked the question to the 54-year-old Brian Schroy. Back to Brian Schroy, the new runner.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to him?
I'd say, wow, you really did a good job losing that weight. I mean, honestly, like getting that healthy lifestyle, I was a huge part of the running motivation in the beginning. And I think that it's also a motivation like to continue with my healthy lifestyle. But yeah, when I started running, I was like 185 and just being able to like see the results and, lose weight and get faster and make it a part of my routine. It's like, it's what, makes me feel good. That's how I start my day. It's like my cup of coffee. So I think that like telling my 27-year-old self that like the hard work's going to pay off and good things are to come is pretty much the message.
Cool. I think that's a good place to wrap.
Yeah.
Speaking of good things to come, if you are in the Boulder area, come join us on June 7th at 7 a.m. at the Scratch Cafe. The good things to come, a great run, great people, and most importantly,
soft hour.
I was going to say a burrito.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that too. Oh my God, I'm addicted to those things. Yeah. Everyone get a burrito. They sell out.
Awesome. Brian, thanks so much for taking some time to chat. We'll see you out there.
Of course. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next time on For the Long Run. And in the meantime, happy trails. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too. This podcast and the accompanying music has been produced by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound. For the Long Run's logo was created by Vanessa Wolf of Sterling Wolf. Show notes have been written by Ruby Wiles and is managed by Emily Holland. It takes a village.